Hello and welcome once again to Cafetography.com. Today we're taking a look at a very neat and handy little Canon lens, the EF 24mm f2.8 IS USM. It's a lens that's designed to work on both full frame and APS-C cameras. It costs around £460, which is a little expensive for this kind of lens. On a full frame camera, its focal length of 24mm is a very wide angle. At 24mm you're just beginning to see stretching in the corners of your image, but it's not quite as dramatic as the effect you would see on an ultra wide angle lens. It's a useful focal length for getting the bigger picture. When you use this lens on an APS-C camera, it acts more like a 38mm lens, which is perfect for everyday photography, giving you an angle of a view that's a little more zoomed in, which is great for giving your subjects a little more emphasis. But it still remains quite a wide angle. This lens could be useful for whatever camera you have. It has a maximum aperture of f2.8, so it can let in a reasonable amount of light. It can also give you some out of focus backgrounds, if you're close enough to your subject. However, although f2.8 is a fairly fast aperture, you can definitely get lenses much wider than this. A very welcome feature on this lens is image stabilisation. Here you can see some footage with image stabilisations turned off. And here you can see it turned on. As you can see, the image stabilisation keeps your footage looking very steady, and it will really help you get sharper pictures in darker conditions too. Let's take a look at the lens's build quality. Although it feels quite solid and well made, the lens also manages to be quite small and light, looking a little stubby. It's a very easy lens to keep on your camera all day. The lens has a nice focus ring, it's very smooth to turn, and it works on a clutch, so you can turn it at any time. The front element of the lens does not extend or rotate as you change the focus, and the USM motor is extremely fast and silent during use. Overall, it's a lens that's light and small and works fantastically well. We're looking at very high build quality here, almost the equivalent of one of Canon L series lenses. Well, let's take a look at this lens's picture quality. We'll start by testing it out on a 20 megapixel Canon 6D, which is a full frame camera. We've turned on peripheral illumination and chromatic aberration correction for this test, as this is how most people shoot with their cameras. From f2.8, as you can see, this lens is very sharp in the middle of the image, with very good colours and contrast. In the corners of your images, it's also quite sharp. That's a lovely performance at a wide aperture. If you stop the lens's aperture down to f4 or f5.6, you get even better sharpness in those corners, and of course, perfect picture quality back in the middle of the picture. This is clearly a lens that's very sharp indeed from corner to corner, even from its widest aperture of f2.8. You really can't go wrong with results like this. Well, let's see how it performs on an APS-C camera, in this case a 20 megapixel Canon 70D. As you can see, the lens has good sharpness in the middle of the image, giving you very good definition. It's also good and sharp in the corners. That's a pretty great start. At f4 and f5.6 there's a touch more sharpness, giving us perfect image quality from the corners and back in the middle. So even on the tougher ballpark of an APS-C camera, this lens turns in a very good performance in terms of sharpness. Let's take a look at distortion and vignetting levels when used on a full frame camera. As you can see in this picture, the lens shows a little barrel distortion, but is not really noticeable in normal use. However, the corners of the image are quite dark. The lens is struggling somewhat with vignetting. If you stop the lens down to f4 and further down to f5.6, you can brighten up those corners, or you could just use peripheral illumination on your camera. The lens can focus down to 18 centimeters, which is very close indeed, giving you great pictures of smaller subjects. At f2.8 the close-up image quality is good and sharp, and at f4 you're looking at razor sharpness. What a great performance. So how does this lens perform against bright lights? The answer is comparatively well. Contrast levels are maintained, and flaring is kept at quite a low level. That's also a very nice performance for this lens. It was mentioned earlier that this lens can give you some nice out of focus backgrounds, although admittedly they're not great. The good news is that the quality of those out of focus backgrounds, also known as bokeh, are very smooth indeed. Those blurry backgrounds, when you can just get them, never look harsh or intrusive. Overall, this is an extremely pleasing little lens from Canon, because it does pretty much everything right. It's sharp, it's well built, and it's small and light, and it has nice colours and bokeh, as well as being able to focus very closely to give you some fun picture opportunities. As we see it, it only has two weaknesses. Firstly, it suffers from somewhat strong vignetting levels, although the peripheral illumination on your camera can take care of that. Secondly, it's rather overpriced for an f2.8 lens, so even with all its optical strengths, it's not particularly great value for money. But value for money is something in the eye of the beholder. Anyone who wants a small, fun, image stabilised lens which is optically excellent will be very happy with this lens. So from that point of view, it certainly comes recommended. If you like our videos, please subscribe by clicking on the subscribe button now. Thank you.